But anyway, so the purpose of this meeting is as you saw in my emails, to strengthen partnerships and provide updates and to seek input from all of our partners. It also gives me a chance to show off what we do or our program stewardship does throughout the year. And then it gives y'all a chance to ask some questions and share, and feel free. Let's try to keep this informal as possible. So feel free to ask questions at the end of the meeting. If you got anything you want to share from your organization, please speak up and do so. Just for a little housekeeping, if you're not speaking, try to mute your mic if you don't mind. And with that being said, we'll turn it over. We got Tim Larrymore, our GFC director, is on. He had a busy schedule today, so let's a few words from Tim. Tim, we'll turn it over to you.
Hey, Mark, and thanks for introduction and for the invitation to participate and be here with the group. And it's good to see. Really, this is kind of just looking at all the names and the agencies that are on the call. It's a reminder to me in the chair that I have the privilege and the honor of sitting in. It's a real big reminder to me of what I've seen already over my first 8 months here, and that is that the Forestry Commission understands partnerships, and our employees and our agency, we get the value of partnerships with other state agencies, with other federal agencies, and with conservation organizations, and with landowners, and thankful that all of you are here supporting the work that Mark and Buford do around stewardship. We all understand the value of stewardship, and know that landowners in Georgia, 91% being private owners, understand the value of stewardship and really have a connection to our land and to our forest, and seek to leave, manage those forests well. And I think this committee and the work that we do through this committee and through our agencies, in my mind, really is an excellent model and an excellent example of how we can encourage landowners to continue to put wise practices on the ground. So just thank you guys for being here. Look, I know this is the first time I've been on this committee. I know I've met quite a bit of you already at different events, either in person or in a virtual setting. But just real quick, I think it's important just to kind of give you a little bit of information, a little bit of history of where I'm coming from. I had the opportunity to take this role back in January. Our GFC board tapped me on the shoulder, and with the consent of the governor of our state, I was given the honor to come be the director and serve as the state forester. And that comes to me with great responsibility because of the value that our forests play in making Georgia such a great place. So huge responsibility, huge honor, and something I'm really excited about. I'm a forester by training. Graduated from the University of Georgia. So, Lynn, I saw your Go Dogs. It was highly appropriate. So you could have left that up. That was great. So graduated there back in '98 and started my career with the Forestry Commission. Started my career writing forest stewardship plans. So I've done my fair share of those plans. I know what's in them, and I know what's involved in writing them and working with landowners, and really just the reward of doing a comprehensive management plan for landowners. I understand the value of that. Was with the commission for about 5 years, and then had the opportunity to walk over into the private sector, where I spent the last 15 years of my career. And now, like I said, back in January, had the opportunity to come and rejoin the Georgia Forestry Commission and get the opportunity to sit in the chair that I am now, and work with a great team. That's been the thing that's been consistent that I've seen with the Forestry Commission when I was here back in my first stint, and then now back here in my second stint. That's one thing that has remained consistent, is that we've got dedicated well-equipped, and employees that have a strong ethic for doing what's right and working with landowners. And for me, that's something I can't be more proud of to be a part of. Um, so thank you for all of you guys being here. Know that I'm a resource to you. I have a fairly open door policy. Lots of folks have my mobile number, so I answer my mobile number and be glad to help any way I can your organization, or if there's things that you think that I need to know about our organization here at the commission, I'd certainly welcome that feedback and that input as well. And just before we get any further, I would just like to congratulate Buford, and I see Andrew, and I hope I don't miss anybody else on here, but the Ceylon closing, the WMA purchase was a couple weeks ago, or the ceremony was a couple weeks ago. I think it was a couple weeks ago. It could have been a day ago, but there's just been so much in between. But just congratulations on that work, and I mean, what a great ceremony that was down in far southeast Georgia, down on the coast. So what a great accomplishment, and just want to recognize the value of that to our state and the value of work that you guys, and the hard work and the effort that y'all put into that. Good work on that. Good congratulations. I mean, congratulations. Well deserved. And the real value for that, and I made this during my remarks down there, is that to me it's an acknowledgement that working forest and conservation can go hand in hand. Even in one of the largest wood baskets or forest products baskets, production baskets, I don't know how you want to say it, portions on the globe, and that's that southeast portion of our state. So that makes me proud to be a part of that, and I just congratulate all of y'all on the many years of hard work that was done to put that in play and to get that done, and look forward to more of that kind of good effort and that kind of good work moving forward. So and know that I'm here to support that and partner and encourage our folks to continue to support that and partner on those type of efforts moving forward. So, I touched on partnerships, and I get that. I understand that. That's what we all have to depend on. Mark made the comment that I'm busy and that I'm not going to be able to spend the whole call with us, or with the meeting. But I know that all of you are busy as well. And for me, I think that's where the value of partnerships comes in, and we all can lean on each other for support and for effort, and we can get good work done. And and when I mean good work done, I mean we can get good conservation, good stewardship, good forest management all across our state, and get it in the hands of the forest landowners in our state that need it the most. And that can do the most good with the resources that we as partners can get in their hands. So to me, that's where I see the value of this group. Let's continue to drive forward and press forward. And I think to me, I've never been as excited about being in the forestry community, in the forestry sector, as I am, or as I have been really for like the last 3 years. Because it just seems like there's so much excitement, and there's so many people that are in our country that are looking and finally realizing and acknowledging that the work that we've been doing, and the work that many of you on this committee and on this call have been doing for decades, is the answer to some of the most difficult questions that our country has moving forward around conservation, climate change, providing the consumer products that are essential and critical to our life as humans on this planet. We all saw that in the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all searching for the basic consumer goods that we often take for granted. So we're a part of that, and Georgia's a big part of that. And the work that we're doing on this committee and the work that we do in this state is a huge part of that. And so I encourage you to continue to do that good work, and even be bold in the work that we're doing, and let's continue to make a difference for our state and for for these landowners that really fuel really the answer to a lot of the tough questions that our country that our country is facing. And I'll just wrap up. I touched a minute there on COVID. COVID's been an impact to all of us. It continues to be an impact to all of us and to all of our operations. We are, as of July the 1st, our offices, our county offices are back open. I'm actually sitting in one of those now in Brooks County. We're back open. Our rangers are getting ready and getting equipped and getting prepared for the upcoming plowing and burning season. And we're committed to we're committed first of all to keeping our employees safe and keeping their families and keeping their communities well from COVID. And we've got protocols in place that we feel pretty good about, or we feel strongly about, that will do that. But we also feel like those protocols will allow us to perform the services that our agency performs, and that is, plowing and prescribed burning, which fits well within this committee, and then also continue to provide the critical service that we provide to our state, and that's wildfire protection. So that's mission critical for us, and so that's what's driving our decisions. But we look forward to a plowing and burning season that will be healthy, and that will be able to our folks will be able to serve landowners well on that front. We'll continue to monitor, as all of you guys are. That's subject to change, and it feels like it changes almost daily, weekly, or monthly. And that's the situation around COVID. But right now, our plan going forward is to be in service mode for landowners out of our county offices. And our foresters are continuing to work. They're working from home in a lot of cases. I think that's a modern approach for our commission, and I think it's working well for our foresters. And they're continuing to write management plans and do cost share work for with landowners and provide general advice. So we'll continue to do that as well on a go-forward basis. So, Mark, I will pause there. I've kind of gone through a lot there, but if there's anybody that has any questions, I'd certainly be glad to do that. And I'm gonna stick around for a little while, but I know I'm gonna have to bow out here. I got in a few minutes.
All right. Anybody got anything for Tim?
Tim, I was just curious. I know you're brand new. I can't believe it's already been 8 months.
It's crazy.
Really excited to have you on board. I actually recognized your name. I think we may have even gone to school together, because we were both at Warnell in the 90s. So I recognized your name, but glad to have you on. And I appreciate you taking the time to join this committee. I've been involved with this committee for a long, long time in various capacities, but I'm glad to see you put it as a priority on your schedule to address the group. But I have a question for you, and I'm just curious. So, like, moving forward into this next year, knowing that we're still going to be dealing with COVID probably and all the other things that go on, what are like your top 1, 2, 3 priorities or things you're going to try to focus on for your agency in the upcoming year? I was just curious what your focus was going to be.
Well, I mean, obviously my focus for the first 6 or 7 months, 8 months has been learning what the operations are and what our employees' needs are and what our agency's needs are. And some of that, those priorities that you're asking about are really, are in conjunction with some of my board's ask of me. And I think priority number 1 is that our agency priorities got to get our employees healthy, and I say that for that in the broadest of senses, and that means that we've got to address some of the challenges that we are facing as an agency around turnover. I look at our foresters' role, and I think I'm not looking at those numbers, but I think, and I know it's dangerous to start quoting numbers, but 75% of our foresters have 3 years of experience or less. That's a major risk for our agency. We churn through 50 new rangers on an annual basis. That's an enormous amount of time spent on hiring, onboarding, resources spent on training, resources spent on onboarding. So priority number one for me is to get some stabilization around that. And that's not a small task. That's going to take an enormous amount of effort on our part, on our leadership's part. And we're having those conversations with our state leadership. And, it really boils down to me is that if Georgia's the top forestry producing state, and we have 91% of our state owned by landowners that fuel that huge economic and rural development, the question comes down to is the investment that our state leadership is making into our agency, is that suitable to continue that on a go-forward basis and to continue to allow Georgia to be positioned as well as it has been these last 100 years of our existence. And that's not a question I can answer. That's a question that our state leadership has to answer, because we're going to do the best we can do with the resources that they give us. But my question to our state leadership is the amount of money that you're investing in our organization, does it position us well enough to continue to work to make sure forestry is relevant and significant to our state? So I think a lot of that comes with, priority number one is we got to get some stability in our workforce. That's no different than everybody else that's on this call. But there's some things that we can do. Employee engagement, career ladders. That's a brand new term to state government. So we got to do a really good job of doing that. So that's priority number one, and it's probably going to be priority number two and priority number three, honestly, because of the amount of time and effort and energy that it's going to take to get that done. I come from the private sector previously. Those kind of things move fast. If you had a leader in the company that wanted to make something like that happen, it pretty much come down as an edict, and it just happened. But that's not the way I've found it to happen in state government. So it takes a little bit of groundwork and budget process and conversations. But priority number one is to make sure we can get a stable workforce. Frankly, the other risk of that is it's a risk to us being able to deliver services, right? And here's an example of that. Without a stable workforce, when we churn through 50 rangers a year over the last 3 years, as hiring new rangers, forest rangers, that we rely on tremendously to go out and do plowing and prescribed fire with private landowners. We're not even keeping rangers long enough to get them to be a certified prescribed burner, where they can go out and do the burning assist with landowners themselves. So we're having to send out a whole office to go work with one landowner, and not being able to disperse our resources where we could. So we got an office of 3 individuals. Right now, we've got instances where all 3 of those individuals have to go do one burn with one landowner, because we don't have, all of them are not certified burners because they're so junior in their tenure here with the commission. So if we get to a spot where we've got some stability in that workforce, ideally we would like to have all 3 of those gentlemen or ladies in that office certified, where we could disperse them to 3 different areas where they could work with 3 different landowners. So you begin to magnify the scale of impact that we can have. And to me, last year our state burned 1 million acres. It was permitted. We permitted 1 million acres. The Forestry Commission met our goal of 150,000 acres, and that's with that 50 employee churn, and that's with 58% of our rangers with 5 years or less experience. So if we can stabilize that, I'm confident we can double that. Fairly simple. If we can reduce that churn from 50 to 25, I think we can double the impact that we as an agency have on the landscape and getting services done. And that's a big risk and a big concern for me, because many of these calls and many of the conversations that I've been on with partners right now, there's an enormous amount of focus on prescribed fire, and getting prescribed fire on the ground is different today than it was 5 years ago. And that's largely being driven by some of those workforce challenges and the churn and the turnover. Long question to your, long answer to your question, but priority number one is workforce stability. And it's going to be 2 and 3, a close second and third. But all of that drives the work that we're able to get done. And that is really for without that, it really presents a challenge. When you got 75% of your foresters that are 3 years and less, and then you start looking at rangers too, hiring 50 a year out of 350 total, presents some obstacles, some challenges. Did I answer your question, Lynn?
Yes, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And it's good to hear that you're laser focused. Sometimes, when people come into a new position and they get through that investigation phase and learning phase, they'll sometimes cast a wide net and aren't really able to accomplish as much as they could if they were laser focused. And I'm really encouraged by what you have already recognized, that your staff are the ones that get the work done. And if you don't have that rock solid, that anchor point, you can't do a lot of the services that the landowners and partners need. So very encouraged. I appreciate that.
It certainly puts the services at risk, and more importantly, it puts the resource at risk for our state.
Well, just let you know that the Forest Service is a huge supporter of you and what you do, because we can't do what we do without you. So please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm sure I speak for both Kay and Jan, if you ever, or even Ken, if you ever need anything from us, please call and let us know what we can do to assist you.
Thank you. And is Jan still, Jan's got a new assignment?
She does, and Shardul is filling in behind her. I missed our staff call on Monday, so I'm not sure exactly how long she'll be doing this assignment or what exactly it is, but it sounded like was quite an honor to serve on this team that she's on. So.
All right, Mark, I'm happy to take any other questions. Just not from our employees, though. I'm just kidding.
Anybody got anything else for Tim?
I promise. They know I'm kidding.
Well, dang, Tim, you kind of summed up the rest of my meeting. I guess we can all go home now, but no, I'm just kidding. But you appreciate it. Thanks for getting on and answering questions and speaking. Has anybody got anything else for Tim? All right, we'll continue on. This is stewardship. It's not only about stewardship. This meeting is a lot about legacy as well. And I can honestly say I've learned more about legacy in the past 3 or 4 months, working with our next speaker, Andrew Schock, than I have in Buford, than I have my whole life, but my whole career rather. Legacy is an important tool for conservation. So I'll turn it over to Andrew and give us an update on what's going on with legacy in the state of Georgia. Andrew, can you share the screen, or you got it, or do you want me to?
I will share a screen. I think it's my objective.
I can see it.
I think we got it here. I'll make it a little bit bigger. I know sometimes things get small. I'm hoping everybody can see this. Thanks, Mark. And Buford, did you want to start off, or would you rather I?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. Thanks. What I wanted to talk about is, I guess, what we're hoping and suggesting will be the state's priority forest legacy project for this cycle. where the applications due in October, and I guess decisions are made in, I'll just say the spring. It seems to vary, the spring of 22, and then funding coming, within about a year of that. So this project is what we're calling the Suwannee River Headwaters Forest Project, and the project area itself is this outlined in black. It's Fargo is right here on the southwestern side or western side of the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. And the Suwannee River, this blue line, heads up in the refuge in the swamp and travels in this direction. This is the Florida state line, and it continues to the Gulf of Mexico. This is an important project for many, many reasons. I mean, one very basic reason is water quality. The Suwannee River is undammed, and it provides the greatest volume in a single stream of fresh water to the eastern side of the Gulf of Mexico. So it's very important to the Gulf, to some of the anadromous fishes that rely on undammed rivers coming out of the Gulf or swimming up from the Gulf. But also, this is riparian corridor habitat protection, as well as longleaf pine restoration. Before I get into the details, just to show you on this map too, it's roughly 35 river miles from where the river comes out of the refuge to the border with Florida. In Florida, roughly 152 out of the 200 miles are protected. River miles are protected. In Georgia, having worked previously with the Forestry Commission, we've protected roughly these 12 miles of river here. So this project would protect 14 miles of the river, basically from the refuge to Fargo, just leaving this 10-mile gap. So we're actually talking about a project that would add significantly to the protection of the Suwannee River, which is, has a lot of protection already. So it's kind of a global project. So the last thing, well, no, this isn't the last thing I'll say. I got a lot more to say, but I'll try to keep it brief. This entire project area is roughly 12,000 acres. The Conservation Fund is under contract to purchase everything in this orange and in this brown here, roughly 8,600 acres. We would close on this in October, the latter part of October. And at that point, we will start managing it as a forest. As Tim mentioned, we'll manage it as a working forest. This area in mustard color or orange, we would endeavor to have the Fish and Wildlife Service acquire it from us over time, thus making it part of the National Wildlife Refuge. So on these acres, as we're harvesting the loblolly and or slash that may be there, we would be reforesting to longleaf pine. We also would work with the local implementation team and the Fish and Wildlife Service to get fire back on the landscape here, to help build the fire resilient buffer that the local implementation team is endeavoring to do. The Forest Legacy Project itself is in this brown color, roughly 3,500 acres, 3,000 to 3,500 acres, where working with the Georgia Forestry Commission, we are making application for a Forest Legacy grant to have the Forestry Commission be able to buy these 3,500 acres from us. That 3,500 acres and those dollars would require a match, and that match would be in the donation of a conservation easement along this river corridor in yellow from the adjacent landowner, which is Superior Pine. So we would get, that's how we buy 8,700 acres, but make it a 12,250 acre conservation transaction. And to be clear, because I may not have said this, this area here under the Forest Legacy, it would be a conservation easement that's held by the Georgia Forestry Commission if we get the Forest Legacy Award. And once that is in place, we would sell these 3,500 acres to another private owner, keeping it in private ownership and keeping it as a working forest. I'm not sure. Well, Buford, I'll stop there. I don't know if you want to add anything to what I've said or fill in something I've forgotten.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And Tim, I don't know if Tim is still on because I don't see the members right now, but just to a point to the committee, you know, the committee's role here is, as Mark mentioned earlier, both to steward opportunities for engagement with partners. And as far as legacy goes, this is a situation where, as partners, we're looking for support for this project. You know, ultimately, Tim, as the director, puts his name on this application. So that the role here again for the committee is to be aware of this project, to understand it, and to support it, and to bring up both supporting issues and any issues that might need to be addressed. So I appreciate Andrew giving us the overview and sharing with the committee. Ask the committee, you know, even though this is a public meeting and everything, this is a transaction that is still being developed, but certainly would ask for your support as we move forward, recognizing that these things happen over time, but they do require a groundswell of support. So that's the ask there for this committee, to recognize and essentially make a supporting statement that we will then pass to the director and move this application forward. That's it. But good, thanks, Andrew. That was really helpful. If anybody has any questions, now would be a good time to weigh in your thoughts.
Yes, please.
Anybody? This is a big project. Okay. Buford, you got anything else you want to share?
Not on this subject, but thanks again to the committee and Andrew. This is still a work in progress. This is one of the steps, presenting this to the committee, giving them an opportunity to give feedback. One more step in the ladder here as we move up. So thank you.
Many of you know me. I'll stay on. I have another call I need to be doing, but I'll stay on. If you want to send me a question in chat or shoot me an email if you've got questions, I'm happy to entertain them. As you know, this is the first look you've had at this, so there may be some questions percolating. But thanks, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. All right, our next speaker, don't need a whole lot of introduction. We've already heard from Lynn today, but Lynn, are you ready?
Look like she's left the chat.
Can Lynn leave the? Uh-oh. Let me text Lynn. We'll give Lynn just another second or two.
We can always come back to her.
Yeah, I don't see she has left it. I don't know, she didn't respond to my text either. All right, we'll move on. The next thing on the agenda, we kind of inherited a program at the time. It was called a small landowner program. And we got the task to more or less revamp it. And we renamed it the Georgia Conservation Woodland. And basically what it is a program that most of the landowners around the state own less than 20 acres. And we was trying to find a program to address those particular small landowners, or landowners with smaller acreages rather. So I was wanting Andrew and Alexandra Ford, which is on my staff in Southwest Georgia. I give her the credits. Her and Michael Torbett, our GIS department, has done most of the work on this project, and they've done a great job. But I've asked Alexandra to share it with the committee. Alexandra, you still with us?
Yes, sir. I'm trying to get the screen sharing going. Okay, so as Mark mentioned, we kind of inherited this small landowner program, and we've turned it into the Conservation Woodland Program. And we are trying to assist landowners with 20 acres or less on how to actively manage their property towards any sort of goals that they have, and specifically to help with CUVA applications. So we've got a little website that I've built, and it's obviously up for some edits and changing, maybe streamlining it a little bit, but it just kind of discusses, introduces what it's about how 75% of the landowners in Georgia own less than 20 acres. And how it starts out with is we kind of would like for you to pinpoint where your property is. So it's a pretty interactive web page. Let's see if my internet's fast enough. And Michael Torbett really helped me with this. But the hopes is that you can kind of pinpoint where your property is. Excuse me, I'll go to mine real quick. And if you zoom in enough, this map kind of shows you any sort of public land, any DNR land, WMA land, any kind of public access that you're not aware about that actually exists. And then if you can pick your property, which my internet's of course super slow right now. But you can pinpoint where your property is, and it'll actually pull up all the information about your soil types. We kind of realized that there's a lot of backyard gardening or people that are wanting to grow vegetables on their property. So it will give you, if you put a pin where your property is, it'll give you your soil hardiness zone, your planting hardiness zone, any sort of threatened and endangered species that could possibly be there, so that are within your county. It'll also give you, obviously, our GFC contact information. So if you want to speak with our foresters or email them, and also any rangers if you want to call them about prescribed fires and the sorts of things. And then it also gives you a contact of your county NRCS office, your FSA office, your DNR office, and your UGA office. And then it also gives you a little, wherever you click, it'll tell you what type of soil is right there, and have a little write-up on there. So this plan was for this whole web page to be a catch-all and have hopefully every topic and information that somebody that has 20 acres or less is interested in, or didn't know that they were interested in, but can actually do on their property. It begins with a little CUVA information. There are some counties where there is an acreage minimum, but if you have less than, I think that generally the minimum acreage for CUVA tax credit or tax breaks is 10 acres, but some counties do allow applications with some sort of management plan. And hopefully with this website, you can actually create a conservation management plan, which we'll get to at the very end. But there's a lot of links to more detailed information. Like this is a link to the tax information. So if you've got any questions and contacts for that, just discuss what goals and objectives are. And the first one we cover is timber management, which has tree planting that comes along with it. We've got some diagrams on correct tree planting if you're doing more of a ornamental or fruit trees, things like that. Urban and arborist, timber harvesting, and it does kind of mention how it is hard to harvest timber on smaller acreage. So we encourage you to work with your neighbors, or at least meet with some consulting foresters to see if they've got some neighboring clients that y'all can all kind of go in together on. But again, there's some more links that have more detailed information. It's got a lot of our Georgia Forestry websites for timber sale advice, what types of timber products are throughout the state and where they are. And obviously a link to our forest service contractors throughout Georgia. Another little diagram. And the last part of the timber management section is burning and fuel types. And that kind of goes into what prescribed burning is, why it's done, what GFC offers, and to make sure that you contact your GFC office, and just a little bit more detailed information on prescribed burning. We then cover forest health, which again has more links so you can get some more detail, but it kind of gives you what to look out for, and then links to have better detailed information on what you could be looking out for, what you might have. And that, of course, is followed up with invasive species identification and control of it. And that has the Forest Service write up with all those invasive species throughout the Southeast. So that will kind of send them to the link that has really, really good detail on how to control, prevent, and identify what could be on their property that they have no idea about. The big thing we've realized is riparian habitat. So people not really knowing how to manage if they've got any kind of water on their property or access to water. So we mentioned BMPs and SMZs, and here's some diagrams on slopes and SMZ widths and things like that. And we've pulled some stuff from a lot of our stewardship plans to talk about pond management and how to manage your fish populations, how to enhance your fish populations, fertilization, all sorts of just information. And then we've got some wood ducks, have some wood duck boxes, talk to your private land biologist, which again, their contact information is in that initial map, which hopefully is a catch-all for everybody that you would want to reach out to. Tree ID is really big. We've realized with a lot of our small landowners is they want to know what types of trees are growing on their property. So again, we've got some GFC or some PDFs that have been made and some UGA extension website links that'll have a lot of information on how they can ID what's growing on their property. And also another big thing was wildlife management. If it's just somebody's house, like where I've got 5 acres, I want to have some wildlife come on there. This will help you with your backyard habitat. This will also help you with your 20 acres that you're hoping can turn into a hunting property. So it just kind of covers what types of wildlife management activities there can be, building food plots, turning other stuff into food plots, harrowing, burning, chopping, all sorts of stuff, or bush hogging and stuff like that, strip mowing, what types of things to plant. And these are kind of found in our stewardship plans as well, which are just common wildlife plantings for quail, for turkey, and then white-tailed deer. But my husband mentioned I needed to add dove fields, so I'll add some information on dove fields as well. And what's becoming pretty popular is establishing some wildlife orchards. So we mentioned a little bit about that. And again, like I said earlier, the backyard habitat for anybody that's living on their property that they're wanting to be better active management on. We included the DNR's website to help with that backyard habitat, so a little bit more detailed information. And again, some of the federally and threatened endangered species that can occur in your ecoregion, so to be on the lookout for them. Another really big thing now is pollinators. So we've got a write-up on why pollinators are important, how to get more pollinators on your property, and what are some native ones that can grow well where your property is, depending on your plant hardiness zone that we selected in your map. And again, there's some more websites, the UGA extension and another Georgia pollinator website. And the backyard gardening, so how to grow your own fruits and vegetables. It kind of gives you a step-by-step of how to decide where to plant, what to plant, and when to plant. And again, just a lot more detailed websites. So we might not have all the information you need on this, but we've got links to send you to where that information can be found. Again, growing fruits. I had to learn this one, how to grow your own mushrooms, which was pretty interesting. And it's kind of been pretty popular recently, especially with all this quarantining and having to stay home. So the little write-up on how to grow your own mushrooms. Scott Griffin wanted us to talk about biochar. So to be able to create your own soil amendment product at your house or on your property to help with your gardening and just soil health in general. Aesthetics was also really big. So we talk about what trees to plant, kind of having some pretty places to sit or have trails, things like that for your family to enjoy and for you to enjoy. And of course, we've got the wildfire prevention and more importantly, the home ignition zone. So to kind of keep the area around your house or any kind of structures on your property, hopefully safe from wildfires. And then about fire breaks and stuff like that. But at the very top, we can go where it started. And if you click on, this conservation management link, it sends you to this survey 123 that we have where you can input your name, if you have an organization, your address, and the zip code and your phone number, email address. So that's how we can contact you and kind of have you in our system. And if you're the landowner or representative. And then you can start selecting what ecoregion you live in, or where your property is, how many acres there are, how many forested acres, the county. You can pinpoint where your property is. And from the previous map, you have your your planting hardiness zone, and then you can input your top 2 objectives. So conservation, since we're going to do this for a CUVA application, and wildlife management and protection. We'll say for this property, there are no threatened or endangered species federally, but there are some gopher tortoise known. We are on the Flint River. Any kind of forest health issues. So when reviewing that forest health section on the website, if you notice that you do have some of those things growing there, you can say yes. You can just pick which type of invasive plant species you have, and or any sorts of insects and disease issues that you might have. There's any special sites, graveyards, Indian mounds, those sorts of things. And then the common forest types found on your property. And you can select, I believe, multiple. So you can select multiple types, and then you can do up to 5 different stands. So again, how many acres is your hardwood bottom? It's 3 acres. You do bottomland, and then you decide, well, I'd like to do some TSI or, protect the endangered species, control some of the invasive plants. There's some pond in there, so I want to do some pond management, and select what type of trees are in there. It's natural, what your DBH is. You think you've got a pretty good healthy stand, and for what your goals are, it's well stocked. It's unthinned, and your understories is low to moderate with hardwood and let's go palmetto, native grasses and some organic matter duff, and low to moderate. So then you'll submit, and then hopefully you'll get an email. And this beautiful play off of our leave behind document will be emailed to me, and I'll kind of review it to make sure everything falls in line, sign off on it, and then it'll be delivered to you. And it has kind of your overall description of your property. If there are any water bodies that you mentioned, what they are, were there any forest health issues? Yes, unfortunately, there's some Japanese climbing fern and autumn olive, but no beetles. The common timber species on there. And then if you had multiple stands, the selections you made for your stand types. And then also we haven't quite gotten on there, but eventually we'll have the ability to make, for the landowner to easily make, well, I say that, but to easily make a little stand map for their property and to print off with that plan. And I don't know why it's not working, but this is what the end result would be if the landowner comes in, and it's really, really easy to just click a couple things and make these plans, or to make this map to correlate with the management plan that you've created. So I know that was a lot, and we're still working on it, but it's been a labor of love, to say the least. But I'm trying to kind of get everybody's potential interest and what people have asked our foresters about on their small properties, and to kind of have a catch-all where they can have just a little 3-ring binder full of all the information that they want to know or didn't know that they wanted to know, to help manage those little 20 acres or less properties, and hopefully maybe even apply for CUBA to get some tax breaks. And that's it. I'm sure there's lots of questions, or if I talk too fast.
Alexandra, this is Luann. This is a fabulous resource, and I can just think of lots of people already that would be interested in this. Is it on the GFC website? Is it live now, or what?
It's
where
not
are you?
live now. We've
Okay.
still got some bugs to go through, but the plan is to launch it on the GA Trees website.
Okay. Any kind of time frame on that launch?
That I'm not sure. We're pretty close to getting everything tidied up, and maybe do some soft launches with landowners to see what we need to have tweaked. But I don't know, Mark, I don't know how that process works.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I was originally thinking the end of this month, but I've seen the next 2 to 3 weeks, we should be pretty dang close to getting online. So we should have it fine tuned by then. I mean, the object was having a one-stop shop for anybody. That was a lot of information, but the landowners don't have to look at everything. They look at what they're interested in, print it off. And then when Alexandra sends the plan back, like she said, you attach it and put it in a folder, and you got a plan for your property. And then, Alexandra's going to sign it. And so it has some validity to it. So this is what we come up with. So, hats off to Alexandra and Michael Torbett. They spent the most time on this, but I think they've done a great job, and I hope y'all enjoyed it and are able to reference some, your clients toward this website if they need it. Does anybody got any questions?
This is Michael. I don't have any question. It's just, I think like everyone else has mentioned in the chat, and even what Luann just mentioned, I think this is an awesome tool that y'all have created. One-stop shop. A lot of times those smaller landowners feel as though they're being left out. So, I mean, it is a wealth of information. You're talking about pollinators, as Alexandra mentioned, that's kind of new, hot and buzzing. And one thing that stuck out to me that she mentioned that potentially came from Scott Griffin was biochar. We're dealing with that now with NRCS, and just to have that information in there, I think y'all went over and beyond the call of the bell with this tool, and just the map that's on the screen now is awesome. So kudos to you all for doing this. It's an excellent tool.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Michael. Anybody else got any comments or questions?
This is Chase Cook with the Georgia SFI committee. I think maybe later, not now, but later, if the Alexandra and anybody else that's involved with kind of getting feedback from landowners and being able to know how willing or interested landowners would be, again, down the road, maybe adding an opportunity for folks to engage with the larger forestry community. So whether that was tree farm program on the certification side, or understanding there's a Georgia Forestry Association they could be a part of, or any of the other more NGO type presence that they could plug into and be a part of. Maybe something to add, but there's so much wonderful information on there right now. I would hate to add more to it until you kind of know if that's useful or not. So echoing what everybody said, hats off, and that would be just maybe something to think about for later.
Yep. Yeah, good points, Chase. Thank you very much. We would take that in consideration. I didn't think about that. Anybody else? All right. Very good, Alexandra. Thank you very much for that presentation. That was excellent. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just make sure there's a good keywords on everything, because that's always the frustration, is if you know the information is there, but you kind of can't go back to it. So just make sure you just throw a lot of keywords on things. People will really appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks, Leslie. All right. All right, we're gonna go back to Lynn. She's still having some internet issues. I don't know exactly how we're gonna do this, but I'm gonna try to pull her presentation up, and she's on speakerphone on Buford's phone.
This is
So
called,
we're gonna,
yeah, this is basically being flexible. Hey, let's do a sound check real quick. Lynn, go ahead.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me from Buford's phone?
How did it sound, Mark? Is it all right?
I heard her.
All right.
That doesn't sound real encouraging.
Use your outside.
We hear you, Lynn.
Okay, well, my apologies. My internet dropped right before Andrew went on. It was absolutely storming here and has been all morning. So yeah, Mark, you're going to need to share my presentations, and I'll just give you the cue to move forward.
Okay, I think, can y'all see my screen?
Yeah, we see the screen.
Yes. All right, Lynn, you're up. We do the best we can.
Okay, well, I'll get started. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Lynn Lewis. I'm with Forest Service, and my official title is Landowner Assistance Program Manager. But one thing that incorporates is the Forest Stewardship Program. So I work really closely with the state forestry agencies, stewardship coordinators like Mark and Buford and their staff to administer the Forest Stewardship Program. And I'm glad to see everybody. I always love attending this meeting because, as I mentioned earlier, I've been a part of this committee for many years in different capacities. So I always like to come back and visit my people. So, Martin, you can go ahead and get to the next slide. Some of y'all have heard this before, but I know we've got some new folks, and I always like to start at the beginning just so we're all on the same page. But I'm mainly going to be talking about the forest stewardship modernization process that we've been undergoing for now going on 4 years. And I always want to point out why are we going through this not so fun process, and why is it important. So this really started back in fiscal year 2017, and it ran through 18 and 19. We were getting some congressional budget marks where Congress was essentially asking us for the program to be more outcome-based and to really look at our funding allocation formula and how we decide how the states and the regions get their funds to administer the program. And so after 3 years of Congress telling us we needed to do this, we figured we better start looking at it before something worse happens. So this is sort of the biggest paradigm shift that we've been in the program since it started in the 90s. And a lot of this was brought forth because over that period of time, stewardship has seen a decline in funding of about 50%. And where we are right now, the funding levels are just barely enough to keep us operational. So we're kind of we're kind of in the ICU unit right now with this program. And so we saw modernization as an opportunity to really revamp the program and get it to where Congress wants us to get it. And so hopefully they will see our efforts and reward us with some additional funds so we can really start getting the program back to where it needs to be for private landowners and our natural resources. All right, Mark. So this modernization process, I just want to make sure everybody knows this wasn't an edict from the Forest Service on how this was all going to go down. This has been very much a stakeholder-based input, feedback-driven process with all of the stakeholders. And of course, the state forestry agencies were a huge part of this. So we've been brainstorming different ideas, sending, ideas out, getting feedback. Some of them that we agreed on sounded like something good to execute. We execute them, and then we take a look at it. Did it work the way we thought it was going to work? If not, let's pull it back in. Let's make improvements, adjustments. And we've been going through this cycle for essentially 4 years with different parts of the modernization process. But I think this model is super, super important because it really helps everybody have some strong ownership in the outcome. And when you've got good ownership from, all the stakeholders, the chances of it being successfully implemented over a long period of time really improves. And so we end up with a better product, and we end up with stronger relationships with our stakeholders, and hopefully we end up with a better product in the end that has some longevity to it. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that this process that we've been going through has been very much stakeholder based and a lot of back and forth feedback. All right, Mark. So just a little bit of a timeline. Again, this predates me. I didn't come on with the Forest Service until September of 18, but I know Buford was around when a lot of this really started building momentum. So he's got a little bit more institutional knowledge than I do. But from what I can understand, it was around late 2017 that an executive committee and sort of a working group were formed, and they were made up of Forest Service representatives as well as the state forestry agency folks. And it varied from Washington level to regional level to, more of the technical representations, because we wanted to make sure we got a lot of people's feedback on how we were going to do all of this. And then in summer of 2018, the National Association of State Foresters, they were presented a series of alternatives to choose from to kind of figure out the direction we were going to go with the modernization process. And I think there were 3 or 4 alternatives. I can't remember now. But they picked alternative 1, and there were some other things in this alternative, but the 2 big ones that were really key to the modernization process was the outcome-based, which again, that's what Congress was looking for, but also the focus on priority areas. So now we had sort of our movement forward with alternative 1. So it was in 2019 that we really started, the working group and the executive committee really started diving into the details on how to do those 2 things. And so in 2019, a lot of the work was focused on the allocation formula, which is how the Forest Service determines how much money the regions and the states get to administer the program. And the other big thing was the 50% cap on priority areas. And I'll talk a little bit more about this further on in the slide. But just from a time frame standpoint, that was the big lift in 2019. And then in February of 2020, we did have our National Forest Stewardship Program meeting. It was our region's turn to host, so we had that in Charleston, South Carolina. Thank goodness we were able to pull that off right before COVID hit. But that was the one spot that we really had everybody in the room face to face, and we carved out a fair chunk of time. I wish in hindsight we'd carved out more. But a big chunk of time was dedicated to talking about modernization and how it's going to work and gathering feedback from all of the stakeholders. And then in summer of 2020, the priority areas kind of took focus, and that's where the GIS folks like Michael and Charles Bailey, I think I saw Michael on the phone, Torbett, they did a tremendously heavy lift putting together these stewardship priority areas. So kudos to them for all of their work, because they were also doing this in tandem with revising the State Forest Action Plan at the same time. So they were super, super busy. And then this past winter and spring really focused on implementing the new allocation formula and working out the reporting pieces. And that's sort of where we are right now. But just to kind of summarize all of this, Mark, I need you to click your mouse 7 times.
Say that again, Lynn.
Click your mouse 7 times
7 times.
and you'll see meetings, conference calls, meetings, conference calls.
Oh, I got you.
This thing has been a marathon. We are in our 4th year, and this has been a marathon of lots and lots of back and forth to get this figured out. All right, Mark, you should see a slide with a stool.
Okay. Slide
Got it.
5.
All right. All right, just click one more time. So you should see prioritization of lands.
Yes.
So I really just want to focus on sort of what I consider the 3 really important pieces of the modernization process that we've been working on. The first one is that prioritization of lands, and then click your mouse again, Mark.
Okay.
Second is the national allocation formula, how the funds get funneled down to the states. And then Mark, hit your mouse again. And then that outcome-based monitoring and accomplishment reporting. Those are the 3 legs of the stool. And then Mark, hit your mouse one more time.
Okay.
So to me, these are the 3 main things that are really going to make the forest stewardship program better. It's going to improve the delivery of technical assistance. We're going to engage more landowners. We're going to have all those benefits that come from having engaged landowners actively manage their lands with healthy forests, improved wildlife habitat, water quality, all that stuff. And hopefully, because of all of these efforts that we've been doing for the past 4 years in the modernization process, we'll get some more resources so we can continue to ramp up the program and get it where it really needs to be so it can be effective. All right, Mark, one more time. So you see your priority land slide?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to walk through all 3 of those just in a little bit more detail. So I mentioned prioritization of lands or priority areas. We now refer to them as federal investment areas. One thing that we discovered pretty early on by using the word priority areas, we were sending a message that we didn't intend to send. So, we had folks that said, well, if I'm not in the priority area, you're just not going to do anything for me. You're not going to serve me. And that was not at all what that meant. So we changed the verbiage to federal investment just to emphasize that the Forest Service funds, we want to focus them in certain areas. And that's where we have to set where those areas are going to be. But if there's a landowner outside the federal investment area, they will still get served, no matter where they are. This is more of an internal thing. It just depends on how the forester charges his time. So, but the other part of this is the Forest Service in 2019 had a letter or a memo that went out in partnership with NASF that the priority areas or the federal investment areas couldn't be any more than 50% of eligible forest stewardship acres in the state. So that sort of cinched down those federal investment areas. So you couldn't just say your whole state was a federal investment area. You had to at least be below that 50% mark. And that was kind of a difficult thing that we had to work through to get that figured out. But the states, it was totally up to them. It was determined by the state where they wanted their federal investment areas to land. And Mark, I'm not entirely sure. I think this is y'all's final map.
I think there's one more after this one that we had that because I think that one had too many acres in it. We had to narrow it down just a little bit more.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't think I had y'all's final one. So take this picture with a little bit grain of salt. It's not the final.
But those
one.
are the priority counties that we selected and went from there.
Yeah, and so the other thing is these federal investment areas, they're not set in stone. The idea is that we'll focus on these areas for 3, 4, 5 years, however long it takes, hopefully show some measurable differences, some improvements, and then be able to move the federal investment areas to other places that may have more need. We're hoping that maybe this might end up getting updated with the state forest action plans. but it's really up to the states to decide how often they need to update these. But again, we're hoping they don't get updated very often. Number one, it's a heavy lift. And number two, if you move the federal investment areas around like every year, then you're really not focusing like you need to, because 1 year is just really not long enough to really make a measurable difference. All right, Mark, next slide.
Yeah, I just want to comment make one little comment. These counties, there was a lot of behind the scenes went on with selecting these counties. I think I presented it to the Stewardship Committee 2 years ago, but we had a lot of meetings with my staff, and we met in Macon, and we really hashed this out. But basically, the counties we picked, the basis what we went on was the most non-industrial private lands in the county. So those are why the counties in green that's the reason we selected the counties we did, based on that fact, and we narrowed it down from there. But I just want everybody to kind of understand that, our method behind our madness there, because I know y'all are wondering why didn't certain counties get selected, but that would be the main reason. All right, Lynn,
Mark, what's the heading on the two different colors? It's hard to see on the screen. For the yellow and the green.
That's eligible lands. So there was a difference in eligible and priority.
Okay.
But the main focus was the priority.
Okay.
So we did consider the counties in orange. We did consider them, but there's no way, based on our criteria that we come up with, we just didn't include them. So we just made them eligible. If that makes sense. But anyway, okay. All right, Lynn, I'm on slide 7.
Okay. So the second piece of this is the national allocation formula. And I think I presented some of this information to this group last year, but this is a fairly high level look at this, because if we get down in the weeds, we'd be here weeks talking about the weeds of the allocation formula. But I wanted to just show the differences between the old formula and the new formula that we are now working under. All states are going to get base funding of $100,000. That didn't change between the new and the old. But what did change is you'll see there's a potential and a performance categories. And in the old formula, the potential was more heavily weighted than the performance. In the new formula, we flipped that so that there's more weight, a higher percentage on performance. Again, that's that outcome based that we were trying to get to. We want to reward the states that are performing or having some outcomes with more funding. So you'll see that we went from potential of 55 to potential of 40, and then performance from 45 to 60. So that was that big flip there. And then in the new formula, under that performance category, that's where your federal investment areas come into play as well. They also feed into that performance category. And I'm going to pause right there for just a second to see if there's any questions or comments on that. Okay, Mark, you can go on to the next one. And then the third piece is really trying to focus more on capturing the outcome-based information. And we essentially do that in two ways. We have a monitoring piece that we do, and then we have an accomplishment reporting piece that we do. The monitoring, these are plans that get flagged every year and pulled for more in-depth monitoring. And I don't remember what Georgia has, Mark, around 30, 35 or something that you get pulled for annually. Okay, Mark may have dropped off, but usually it's around 25 to 35 depending on the state.
That's right, Lynn, about around 30 something.
Yeah, and that's where Mark's folks go out, either meet personally or on the phone. They just check in with their landowners and find out, did they actually implement their recommendations? How many did they implement? At what scale? How many acres? And that's where we're starting to get into that real specific implementation, outcome-based information that we need. And one thing we did this year to try to make it easier for the states to gather this information is we developed the Survey 123 technique that can be used either on your laptop or on your phone, smartphone in the field. It's just a form-based data collection, with drop-down options and that sort of thing. It's integrated with ArcGIS, so the shape files that are associated with the plan are already embedded in it. It's in a Esri cloud, so the Forest Service can access it as well as the states. And this piece is this is the first time we've used the Survey 123 over the summer. I mean, it's getting used right now. And so we're still trying to work out some of the kinks with that. But there's been a fair bit of improvements made with the monitoring piece of this through the modernization process. All right, Mark, can you go to the next one? The second piece is the accomplishment reporting. And this is something that happens throughout the year. When Mark or his folks go out and write a plan, they're inputting this data into our database year round. It just happens whenever they get to it, whatever their schedule is. And this piece, again, along with the monitoring, all feeds into that allocation formula that I talked about earlier. So they're all kind of feeding off of each other. All right, Mark, can you go to the next one? So that was kind of the three main pieces that we've really been focusing on with the modernization process, and sort of how they interact with each other. But so I did want to bring attention to FY21, the year that we're coming off of right now. It's been a really rough year this year, rougher than usual. Besides having to try to implement and make adjustments and get feedback for all the stewardship modernization stuff that we've been working on for several years, the Forest Service as a whole, the whole Forest Service, not just state and private, not just forest stewardship, went through our own internal budget modernization process, which is a pretty far cry from how we've done business in the past. One of the biggest changes that we went through this year is all of our salary and expenses from stewardship and all the other programs got separated from program funds. So they came off way at the top before our region ever got our money. And in the past, that wasn't the case. We got salary and expenses at the regional level, which allowed us a little more control on how the money was moved around. So, for instance, if we had a vacancy in a staff position for 6 months, we would see some cost savings there, and we would be able to pass that to the states to do more programmatic work. We don't have that flexibility anymore. So the loss of flexibility, combined with the National Stewardship Program funding dropped again in 21, those two things really made it tough this year. For all the states, and pretty much all the states in the southern region, and pretty much all the states nationally lost money, saw a reduction in funding this year. So it's been a tough year. I just wanted to make sure folks knew that this was the year of the perfect storm, if you will, between our budget modernization process, a reduction in stewardship funding in general, and then having to deal with the implementation of modernization. It's been a pretty tough year. All right, Mark, can you go to the next one? But I'm optimistic about FY22 because I guess that's how I am. I kind of I relate to the cheeseburger guy probably more than the glass half full lady. But so the last I saw was some of the FY22 budget marks. It looks like we're gonna, if it all holds, and y'all know, take this with a huge grain of salt, because this going from here to a final budget that the president signed can be night and day, because there's a lot of back and forth that happens. But the last information I saw that folks were recommending was 17.9 million for stewardship, which is an increase from 11.9 in FY21. So that's not super great, but it's better than another reduction or a flat line. Because like I said, FY21 wasn't really great to start with at 11.9. The other thing that I was really encouraged about, NASF developed a sign-on letter, and I think it was 27 different organizations signed on to this letter, which I thought was pretty impressive that the stewardship program was getting that much support from our partners. But that letter essentially talked a lot about the Forest Service modernization or budget modernization process that happened. It talked about all the work that we've been doing as far as modernizing forest stewardship program. And it was a really good letter supporting stewardship. So I was really excited to see that come out of NASF. And hopefully some of our congressional members will see that and realize how much work that we've been putting towards this modernization process. And modernization is almost complete. I will be very glad when I don't have to talk about modernization anymore because I'm getting burned out. This has been a marathon. The only thing we've got left to do, our standards and guidelines for the stewardship program are pretty old, 2015. We are in the midst of updating those, and we're reforming some committees to get that done sooner rather than later. I mentioned we were still tweaking the monitoring process with a Survey 123 information. We're still tweaking that a little bit. And then we're going to try to do some debrief in the upcoming year, maybe in the winter, just figure out if there's some other things that we need to address that just fell through the cracks or might have gotten forgotten about. So I will be working with Mark and Beaufort and the other states to figure out from them, what still needs a little bit of work as we move into maybe FY 22 or 23. All right, Mark. Next one. So questions, comments. Beaufort, you've been in this a lot longer than me. You got anything you want to add that I might have missed or forgot?
Not really. These things don't change overnight. And you throw in COVID and pandemics and budgets, and it's been an interesting run, but hey, we're on the run, right? So.
All right, any questions or comments from any of the attendees? I know that was pretty dry material as far as presentations go.
Hey, whether it's a decimal or a fraction, it's still interesting, right?
I guess.
I am glad to see that the budget's increased for next year, though. So that's good news.
Well, keep your fingers crossed, because like I said, from start to finish, budgets can change a lot.
All right.
And we'll probably be like we normally are. We'll be in a continuing resolution. If we're lucky, we'll get a budget in February, March. So that's been the standard for as long as I've been around. I think it would blow everybody's mind if we actually got a budget before Christmas. All right, Mark, can you do one more click of the slide?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you already put it down?
Yeah, the
We
Bulldog.
saw it, though, the Bulldog.
They saw it. They're trying to decide if it was an Auburn Tiger or a Clemson Tiger.
Well, I'm going with Clemson Tiger since we're still kind of excited about that win. So, go Dogs.
Thanks again, Lynn. I know this was a little bit more of a challenge to almost do a blind presentation. That's pretty cool.
It's hard to read the room when there's nobody in here.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn.
All right, thank y'all.
Okay. I think I'm up next. I'll try to make this quick so we can stay on time. I appreciate everybody hanging in there. So this is my time of the program. I like to kind of gets me a chance to brag on the stewardship staff and let y'all know what we have going on. But all in all, 2021 has been a good year compared to the previous one in 20. It's always a great year for partnerships. I tried to include all the partners that I work with every year. I hope I didn't miss any. If I did, I apologize, but we couldn't do it without partners. We couldn't get work done on the ground without partners. And I learned early in my career that partnerships with different agencies is big. It's everything. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Talk about some grant opportunities. I know, as y'all know by now, stewardship, we survive off federal dollars. especially NIFWIF grants. We've got four active NIFWIF grants right now. Some of them are going to expire this year, and we had to get an extension on a couple of them. I'll go over some of those here in a minute. We have several federal grants, 4 LSR laser grants, landscape scale restoration grants rather. We just completed a foothills grant in North Georgia. And we got 3 consolidated grants from the Forest Service we're working with right now. Other grants we got 2 hurricane grants, and they close out at the end of this month. So all in all, we got close to $2 million worth of grants. A lot of them are closing out, and we're trying to, of course, always myself and my staff always trying to write more to keep our program going and active as it is. A few challenges this year, of course, was COVID. I was hoping, we were looking good until the summer, and then it started spiking again. So lo and behold, we're back on virtual, and I hope next year we can meet in person. But COVID's been a challenge for everybody over the past couple of years. All in all, our budgets look okay this year. They didn't. I think Tim kind of elaborated on that a little bit this morning. And he also talked a lot about turnover. Turnover affects everybody, whether it's our foresters, rangers, affects our rangers. Without the rangers, we're not getting fire on the ground like we need to. And that's always a big concern to me. Not only fire, but also with our foresters, stewardship plans. Our new foresters, it takes a while to start writing plans. They don't just come in the agency and start writing them. It takes a good year and to get acclimated to what all they're supposed to be doing, and start writing plans. But all in all, it's been a pretty good year for plan writing. So our foresters across the state have written 264 plans for a little over 79,000 acres in fiscal year 21. And if y'all could see my screen, that's you can see where most of the plans are written across the state. I'm sorry, y'all, I got 2 screens showing 2 different things, so I'm not sure what y'all are.
We see the results.
A map, yeah.
See a map?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with my other one. Sorry about that. All right. So this is a map basically of my staff and where in the area they cover. So I got Michael Henson, covers pretty much North Georgia. Chris Howell covers pretty much the East Coast, east side of Georgia. And Alexandra Ford is southwest, and then Lisa's kind of south central. So we got the state covered. So if anybody ever has any questions, you feel free to reach out to anybody on the staff, including myself, of course. But that gives you an idea where our office is and where we're, at least where we're out of anyway. I'll talk just a little bit about the block grant. We completed it end of last fall. It finally ended. Alexandra and Lisa worked really hard on the block grant. All in all, we worked with a little over 400 landowners, and $347 million are granted to the forest due to Hurricane Michael. So I'm glad that was over, and it was a lot of good work and benefits for the landowners in Southwest Georgia that got impacted by that storm. And I hope we don't have one in Georgia for a long time. This is our first NIFWIF grant in Southwest Georgia. Alexandra had written this grant right before I come on. It should finalize this year. But this was one pre-Hurricane Michael. So we had some big plans for this grant, and then Hurricane Michael come, and all the stuff that the areas we had designated, of course, got damaged heavily. So we had to back up and punt and kind of go a different route with some of this. But we managed to get 3,600 acres burned. Managed to get some longleaf in the ground, and then we had a couple prescribed certified burn courses for landowners, and we had good turnout for each of those. So that to me, that was big. Hurricane Michael grant, this grant ends here in a couple weeks. Kind of bittersweet, but all in all, we had from the Hurricane Michael grant, we produced 144 stewardship plans for the hurricane impacted area. And our forester did some good work working with landowners throughout this time. And we still got, we're still plowing brakes and utilizing some of this grant money for our rangers and other people in Southwest Georgia. That's still, and it's going to be a while for, things get back to normal over there due to the storm. But I feel like we really did our part to help out to get things going and get things back on the ground, fire and trees. And we also use some of this money to enhance our nursery. And the idea is to hopefully produce more longleaf pine seedlings for this impacted area as well. This is the Lower Autumn Hall Landscape Project. This was our second NIFWIF grant. So this one, we had completed 20 cost share contracts during the first rollout of it. We still got some pending contracts out there that we're trying to hopefully we'll get the rest of this burnt this year and start carrying on with our next one. But this one does end here shortly. This was the area impacted in our first that Lower Autumn Hall landscape. This is what the counties that we decided to target. So our third NIFWIF grant, we named it South Georgia Landscape and Restoration. We kind of combined Southeast Georgia and West Central and a few counties in Southwest Georgia. Kind of combined them under one NIFWIF grant in one target area. This one was very successful. We had 163 applications and was able to fund 86 applications from the 163. So it is, as luck would have it, we still got 72 pending out there. So that's, that tells me a lot of the fire, and most of it's prescribed burning. So hopefully we'll get this completed this fall and winter, hopefully. But 72 contracts, that's a lot of burning. So I hope we got the manpower to help these landowners out. But this was a very successful program. And we also got we're partnering with the Longleaf Alliance to do a 201 class as well for landowners to get burn certified. So this is another NIFWIF grant, a shortleaf pine and oak restoration in the Cumberlands. This is northwest Georgia, sorry. And you can imagine shortleaf, we partnered with the Shortleaf Pine Initiative, but it's been very challenging, but we have been able to get some work done. It was $150,000 over a 2-year period. But we've done a little bit of burning. We've done some herbicide release and some thinning. Then we got some other outreach programs as well in the future. We're partnering with UGA to do some research on shortleaf. And we also use some of this money to help enhance the nursery to grow more shortleaf pine seedlings. But shortleaf, I've learned a lot about shortleaf over the past couple of years. It's been an interesting project. So I'm looking at, and Michael Henson's the one that's, he's our forester, our specialist that's managing this grant and this project. So he's done a great job. But sometimes working with shortleaf has proved a little bit more challenging than I had initially imagined. So, but he's still doing a great job trying to get landowners participated and get some good work done on the ground. So this was a foothills project that we had in Northeast Georgia. It covered 18 North Georgia counties. And we basically used this, it was a foothills grant, and we used it to focus fire in the North Georgia landscapes. And we did assist 37 landowners with prescribed burning and was able to burn 2,386 acres. And we produced 25 stewardship plans under this project. So to me, this project was very successful in North Georgia. These are two LSR projects. The first one ends this year around the Fort Benning area in West Georgia, Prescribed Fire Initiative Phase 2. So these are two LSR grants. Both of them have been very successful. We had 43 people enrolled in cost share programs for burning in the first year, and we're able to burn 11, a little over, or just under 12,000 acres. The West Georgia, we kind of enhanced it a little bit, and we were able to fund 113 applications and burning a little over 14,000 acres. So very successful projects. We couldn't get this done without Lisa Duncan and RT Lumpkin in around the Fort Benning landscape. Couldn't have done it without them. Very successful program. Real proud of Lisa for managing this project. These are the areas around Fort Benning that were cost shared. The yellow ones are for fiscal year 20, and the red ones are for fiscal year 21. And hats off to Lisa. We partner with the Longleaf Alliance to do the LEO project. This is the Longleaf Ecosystem Occurrence, and there was like 1,600, I think, plots around Fort Benning that Lisa drove to assess, you know, for longleaf pine occurrence. It took better part of, well, it took about 6 or 7 months to complete this project, but she was able to do it pretty much by herself. So hats off to Lisa for getting this done. And the data, the Longleaf Alliance is holding the data. And I think you can go on their website. I think you can request the data. I think is how you get a copy of that. But yeah, a lot of work went into the LEO project in that area, and I think it was very successful. This is the AIRS and our underserved landowner project. We had a couple grants with AIRS, still working with a coastal grant. It was a LSR, and then what we call a legacy grant that we work with underserved landowners. But was able to get a lot done over this past year. We partnered with the AIRS Law Center and partnered with UGA. We done a Preserving Family Heritage estate planning workshop. We had over 700 hits on this. This was online. It was filmed, but people from over 52 counties viewed this website. So that was pretty amazing. We also did, and this is a very neat project I was involved with throughout the year. We done an estate planning field day. There's a lot of behind the scenes work done on this. This was for, heirs, property owners to help clear titles and do estate plans. And we actually were able to complete 10 plans through this project and train 12 facilitators. And this was, I don't know, I thought it was pretty neat. I wasn't expecting to get that many estate plans out of this and clear titles. So I thought that was very accessible. And for an heirs program like that. We're partnering with UGA right now to conduct a study on heirs property owners. We've had over 1,400 landowners participate in the study, and it's ongoing. We've had a women's landowner symposium in Athens. Some of y'all may have attended that. There were 75 landowners in attendance to that meeting. We also sponsored Women's Forest Landowner Academy. This was over a period of 3 or 4 months, and then we had 46 ladies graduate from the academy, which is pretty neat. And I've also worked with McSeed here in McIntosh County because that's where I'm from, and I have worked with 8 underserved landowners and was able to write plans for some of those as well. So heirs program, very successful in my opinion. It's good work. I think that's it for me. If anybody has any questions about stewardship and our program, feel free to ask. Also, any partners out there that want to talk a little bit about what they have going on, feel free. We're all ears. This is your time to speak up. So y'all had the floor now.
Hey, Mark, it's Lynn. Of course, my internet starts working after I do my
Great.
presentation. That was really impressive. You guys have been doing a ton of work. Kudos to you and your folks. Now I know when I talk to you and your head's spinning. Now I really understand why, because you're crazy busy. I really appreciate you summarizing all of that stuff. That's really, really a lot of really good, important information, and it shows that how passionate and dedicated y'all are in getting a lot of that stuff done. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, Mark, this is Michael. Good job. That previous slide, I had an opportunity to work with some of those clients that you're serving. Wasn't able to fund a lot of those projects, but appreciate the good work that you've done there.
Thanks, Michael. Does anybody want to share what's been going on in their work area or agency? Or we usually do this at our meetings, but it's really hard to do that virtual to let everybody speak. So I just thought I'd give a little bit of time at the end for that. But
Mark, just real quickly, and Tim kind of reminded me of this. I'm sort of getting numb to it, which is not good, but sort of a COVID update for the Forest Service. We had rolled up, I think in July, along with all the other federal agencies, our return to the office plan. And that was, of course, before Delta really started ramping up. So from what I understand, a lot of that's been retracted. And so as far as I know, our plans to get back in the office starting in October have kind of gone down the toilet. And so I think we're going to stay at 100% telework for the time being. And they've also essentially shut down our travel as well, except for fire type stuff, essential travel. So I was bummed about that, but I just want to let everybody know that my little field tour probably isn't going to happen again until next year, maybe.
okay.
But that's where we are. So I'm continuing to work from my home in Aiken, South Carolina. So I just wanted to let everybody know that was what was happening with the Forest Service.
All right. Brad, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna, and I've talked with Mark and a few other folks on this call. Sorry I was late. I was actually in another meeting dealing with some of the things I'm going to mention now. Our new director, Ted Will, is started a little committee within our agency to look at ways that we can help increase the use of prescribed fire on private lands in the state. And we're organizing a meeting in middle of October. I think it's October 13th, and I've sent out invites to a lot of y'all about that. And it's mostly just trying to organize a lot of our efforts, different organizations and different, GFC does a ton of work, but other organizations do work around the state, and trying to coordinate some of that and make sure that landowners have that information available to them. But if anybody's interested in that, feel free to contact me and I can get you more information about that meeting.
Brad, what was the date of that again? 13th?
October 13th. It'll be a virtual meeting. I think you were on the email list. I'll make sure, Mark, that you were on that email list. But just trying to, get folks to talk about things that they're doing, and maybe we can set up some place that landowners can go and find the resources that are available to them across the state. One other thing that we're doing, we're looking at doing is helping some landowners do a little more fire and land management in some areas that we're real interested in, especially from a quail perspective. We might be partnering with Quail Forever on a crew that would help landowners get some, augment some of the efforts that GFC is doing, especially in areas where we've got a real keen interest on quail around some of our WMAs, especially down in Southwest Georgia and around the die-laying landscape. But still early phases. That's what the meeting was I was in. Couldn't make most of this one, but I think it'll be an interesting thing, and I hope that help get some more landowners getting their woods in good shape for quail.
Very good, Brad. Thank you very much. I got a few other hands raised. Luann, I see your hand up.
Sure, Mark, thanks. Just wanted to report on kind of a unique project that's been recently launched around Fort Benning. Actually, a couple years ago, the Army Compatible Use Buffer Advisory Board, and Tim, of course, sits on that board, wanted to explore the nexus between the ACUP conservation lands and rural economic development, because those conservation activities are taking place in very rural counties that sometimes lack economic development opportunities. So to make a long story short, we were able to secure funding from the Office of Defense and Community Cooperation, and we've launched a 2-year project working with the River Valley Regional Commission and the Carl Vincent Institute of Government to look at compatible use, rural economic development opportunities in 5 counties in Georgia, and then Russell County, Alabama, the counties that surround Fort Benning. So it's a pretty exciting project. We're looking forward to the outcomes. We think it will allow the communities to understand more about the stewardship and conservation going on in their back doors, see that as more of an asset, and bring new resources to the communities. So a lot of community engagement will be happening over the next 2 years, and we'll keep y'all posted as we discern new information and outcomes from that project.
All right, very good, Luann. I see another hand up. I can't tell who it is. Feel free to speak up.
Hey, this is Chris Watson, but I think Frank Green had his hand up before me.
Okay. Frank, you
Okay.
talk about tree farm
Just
a little
wanted
bit?
to, yeah, I'll just give a little tree farm report here. Let you know that the Forestry Commission and the Tree Farm Program will be hosting a landowner field day on September the 29th at one of our forest stewardship plan tree farm landowners, tree farm of the year in 2019. John Gary's property. It's the Lightwood Plantation on the upper end of Jones County. We hope we'll be able to pull this off with the COVID pandemic going on, but we sent letters out to over 900 people, tree farm, forest stewardship plan landowners in a 2-county area surrounding Jones County. So we'll have Michael Sampson and Tim Larimore and Andres Villegas with GFA and Chase Cook and others giving updates. And then we'll have a little lunch and a field tour in the afternoon covering water quality and conservation easements. Laura Hall with the Oconee River Land Trust will be speaking on easements and the benefits, pros and cons of that. And we'll be covering timber management and water quality, of course. And I think we probably, with the tent space and chair space, we've got room for about 100 and maybe 20 folks. And we're already at like 98. And I think the last day of registration is September the 20th, I believe. So we're hoping the weather's going to be good and we'll be able to pull this off and kind of give the landowners an opportunity to get outside and enjoy a good day in the woods.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Chris?
Hey, thanks. I just want to thank Buford and Mark for inviting me to join the meeting today. My name's Chris Watson, and I'm with the National Parks Conservation Association, and I am a Southeastern Program Director based up in Knoxville, and we've been doing a lot of work in Middle Georgia over the last number of years. And I had a really good conversation with Buford and Susan Granberry at the Forest Service. This was probably back in early June, about the Forest Legacy Program. And so the work that we've been engaged in and is sort of in a growing phase started with an effort to protect some additional areas near the Indian Mounds in Macon, Georgia. The Ocmulgee National Monument originally, which is now the Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park. And so we worked in a coalition of multiple partners for several years, over about 4 Congresses, to get some legislation passed to protect some additional areas around those mounds. And so in 2019, that park unit basically quadrupled in size, and is now contiguous with the Bond Swamp National Wildlife Refuge. And so one of the really key pieces of that legislation was that Congress authorized the Department of Interior to look at about 50 miles of river corridor south from Macon, which is, as y'all know, that's a big forest resources and wildlife area, and it's also rich with Native American history relating to the Muskogee Nation in Oklahoma. And so the DOI has started that study. They're about halfway through a 3-year study process right now. And at the end of that, they will be producing some conclusions and recommendations to Congress about how to bolster protections of significant additional archaeological and cultural and natural resources within that area. And interestingly, at the same time, the Robins Air Force Base has another federal study going on right now, a joint land use plan and sustainability study. And so Robins is within the Georgia Sentinel landscape. I see that Ken Bradley is on the call. Ken is the Sentinel Landscape Partnership Coordinator for the state of Georgia. And so that Robins Air Force Base study will also produce conclusions and recommendations. This stuff will probably start to spring loose towards the end of 2022, I would guess. And there will still be some, the Park Service or the Department of Interior study already had their main public comment period earlier this year, but the Robins Air Force Base study is going to have some additional public opportunities for input. So we're trying to get the agencies to coordinate those 2 studies, get people plugged into the opportunities for public engagement. And there's some real significant possibilities for bolstering the conservation and recreation opportunities within this river corridor in the next year or 2. And so one of the big accomplishments I should mention this year, one of our partners, the Open Space Institute, was able to step in, and we were able to get a $2.8 million LWCF appropriation. And so Open Space Institute is helping to fill in the enlarged boundary for the Ocmulgee Mounds. And also the Bond Swamp National Wildlife Refuge has I think they've got like a 19,000 acre boundary, of which they only occupy about 8,000 acres. So there's a lot of LWCF potential on the upper part of that section of river. And then in the lower part, there's state wildlife management areas, Okie Woods and Ocmulgee state wildlife management areas, and also the little Etchconey Creek WMA. So we are interested in helping to advance, additional protections in those areas also. Some of those big ones, the Okie Woods and the Ocmulgee have actually lost some acreage over the last number of years. So that's some important areas for bear habitat and whatnot. So I just want to make everyone aware that all these activities are going on and those federal studies are continuing. So there's going to be some real opportunity to weigh in and to make people's voices heard about how we can help contribute to expanding the conservation in this river corridor. That's it for me.
Thanks, Chris. Glad for you to be here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Buford, got any closing comments?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. A couple of things real quick to Chris's comments. First of all, Chris, thanks. I'm glad you're here. This is just speaking to the power of the steering committee. Although we don't get together very often, this opportunity, this platform is extremely educational, I know, for a lot of the members that are working in other arenas. And just a wealth of opportunity that we're able to work together on. So thank you for that. For all of the folks who have joined the call, certainly want to thank you for taking this time. And I'll just reiterate what I've already heard, and that is kudos, Mark, to a really good report out, and also a good exchange of information. You know, this isn't where it ends. This is in a lot of ways where we just kickstart where we're going in the future. And so I hope everybody will take advantage of the contacts and the networking, and let's continue offline with these projects and with this work, because it's great stuff, and it was very good. Thank you for all of that. That's really all I have.
Thanks, B. Luann, I still see your hand raised. Is there anything else you want to say, or it just didn't go away?
There's not. It just didn't go away. Thank you, though. Thank you.
All right, just check it.
Thanks.
All right, guys, I think we're out of time. I appreciate everybody being here, and I will see y'all soon, I hope.